Somewhere inside your head, somewhere inside the seemingly impossible organization of electrically charged meat that calls itself the brain, is you. You nor anyone else properly understands how this you comes to be, how states of chemicals and electrical firings turn into your immensely complex, subjective self. Fundamentally, you don't understand you, where you come from, or how you work. And yet, it is this same you that is trying to manage all of the complexities of being a you in the world, and for the most part, trying to be liked by all the other yous that it encounters. Of course, it feels very nice to be liked. In certain cases, it is essential. Our well-being depends, to some degree, on the quality of our social relations, which require us being sufficiently liked by at least some people, some amount of the time. The impulse desire to be liked and the concern we have over what others think of us has clear sociological and evolutionary purpose: to cooperate effectively, reproduce, cultivate a sense of belonging, and so on. The problem, however, is the tendency for this otherwise positive impulse to grow and mutate into a state of malignancy. How often do we find ourselves worrying about what others will think of us before entering into a benign, low-stakes social interaction? How often are we worrying while we are in one? How often do we worry about others thinking about some strange or foolish, but otherwise harmless thing we said or did in the past? How often are we doing or not doing things, buying or not buying things, trying or not trying things, because of our concern over how others we don't barely know or aren't barely affected by will see us? Any and all of these common cases is where the concern over what others think of us can obviously turn potentially malignant. In infancy and early childhood, we are inadvertently conditioned by our parents, teachers, and so forth to feel like we are the center of all attention, the most important thing in the world and beyond. Everything we do is relevant, consequential, or impressive. When we walk for the first time, it's the most important thing that could have happened in the world that day. If we draw on the wall, it's the worst thing. But of course, the world did not care about either of those things that day at all. As we age and are further socialized into the world, we slowly but surely realize this, that the world mostly has never and will never care about what just about anyone does the vast majority of the time, including us. We are not really at the center of anything at all, not even our own mind. We are not important in any grand sense. No one really cares. Not really. Not in the way that we want. This becomes obvious when we turn our lens away from ourselves and toward how we view others. How often and how long do we think or care about others we don't know that well? How much do we care about the mistakes, missteps, and quirks of those we do? How often are we thinking closely about what others are saying or doing in the moment or in life broadly? How often does it affect them, even if we are? Surely there are some exceptions here in certain circumstances with certain loved ones, friends, colleagues, and so forth. But for the most part, the answer is likely very little, if not at all. We are all so worried about ourselves, we leave almost no time or mental space to worry about others in anywhere near the same way we are concerned. And so, likewise, most of the time, when we do or don't do something in a social moment or in life in general, and we are concerned that others will perceive us negatively, most are in fact too busy concerning themselves with when they messed up or how they look to ever notice us, let alone care. On one hand, confronting this, how little others really care or think about us, takes away some degree of our sense of importance. But on the other hand, it gives us the potential freedom to worry less about what others think and focus more on what we do. In his famous 20th century play, No Exit, French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote, "You remember all we were told about the torture chambers, the fire and brimstone, the burning marl, old wives' tales. There's no need for red-hot pokers. Hell is other people." This line, "Hell is other people," is perhaps one of Sartre's most famous quotes, as well as one of his most misinterpreted. He is not suggesting here that other people are inherently evil or bad or unlikable, but rather that hell is the imposed state of dependence and modification of oneself according to the integration, approval, and satisfaction of other people's perception. For Sartre, we naturally identify our sense of self through what he referred to as the look, which essentially refers to the gaze or perception of other people we encounter. In a sort of self-reflective function of consciousness, Sartre argued that a full comprehension of ourself forms as a result of our perceiving that we are being perceived by others. He would refer to this construction of self as the other. In this, in every encounter with another person, even if we are not conscious of it, we become some level aware that others, like us, are constructing their own worlds and their own versions of us, rendering us into objects of their perception. As a consequence, since we are, in part, comprehending ourselves through the reflective function of this, we yearn for that reflection of us to be of high esteem and value, and modify ourselves accordingly. Sartre suggested, however, that in the process of trying to fashion ourselves according to how we fit into the look or minds of other people, we deviate from our free, personal, and subjective self, and in doing so, enter into a state of a sort of existential hell. In needing other people's approval of ourselves so badly, we relinquish ourselves in the process. Moreover, if one is not actually like something, does not like something, and so on, but acts as if they do, they are giving off a false impression to those they portray it to, all while harboring an entirely different truth that will either die inside them or grow and fester into some eventual external explosion, unfairly putting those who were not given the right information right in the line of debris. Ultimately, the truth is, of course, no matter who you are and what you do, some people will not like you, just like how you won't like some people, because everyone is, some amount, unlikable. We are all messes, hovering around inside these obscure brains, trying our best to try our best, tripping up on every third step. We are not the calm, cool, collected types of people we draw up in the ideal. Even on the highest thrones in the world, we are still sitting on our ass, wrote Montaigne. And so, ultimately, if we're going to look weird or be unliked when we worry about what others think and attempt to mold ourselves accordingly, you might as well be weird and unliked, just going about yourself as you are, as best you can. Although it's easy to agree with this conclusion, that of course does not mean the actions that follow are. Arguably, to stop worrying about what others think of you, in this sense, is not the kind of thing that can easily be trained or rationalized away. When the anxiety of disappointment or rejection comes into play during various life choices, when the self-aware anxiety hits in the moments of certain social interactions, the uncontrollable state of mind that occurs seems to struggle to see order, self-control, and rationality. One can know all of the aforementioned to be true, that in most cases, it generally doesn't matter what others think of you, that your life is lived and experienced through your own mind in your own mind alone. But just like an irrational fear of a harmless spider, irrational anxieties of harmless social relations and interactions, by definition, don't respond well to what you rationally know. If there is to be some particular mindset that might help though, it perhaps starts with these subtle reminders of whatever helps regain perspective over how little others care, how little the world cares, how absurd it is to be and function as what you are, and that any moments of clarity, coolness, and success, when they come, are to be appreciated for what they are, unusual, heroic transcendences to the norm of the human condition. If, like Sartre suggests, we see ourselves by being seen by others, or like how Charles Cooley put it, "I'm not who you think I am, I'm not who I think I am who I think you think I am," then perhaps we must see how other people see, carefully and as generously as possible. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. For many, the intimidation, difficulty, and/or tediousness of subjects in math and science can make it hard to start or sustainably pursue learning on your own. The problem-solving website and app, Brilliant, however, helps solve this problem for you. By providing affordable, convenient, interactive, and effective learning courses in math, science, and computer science, Brilliant helps eliminate the barriers to entry and makes it easy to start, enjoy, learn, and excel in STEM subjects. Brilliant's 60-plus courses utilize newly enhanced digital interactives, puzzles, and storytelling that provide engaging learning experiences that are responsive and corrective in real time. By actually interacting and playing with various problems and models, you not only learn the information with Brilliant, but also understand its application on a more fundamental level. Seeing as how the best way to learn is generally by doing, not just showing, Brilliant provides the perfect resource for anyone interested in anything from developing their logic and reasoning skills, learning statistics, algebra, physics, machine learning, finance, and much more. If you enjoy brain teasers to enhance your critical thinking and problem-solving skills, Brilliant has several excellent courses, including The Joy of Problem Solving, which challenges you to use your creativity and intuition to notice patterns, create proofs, and solve puzzles related to logic and algebra. If you're interested in joining Brilliant, you can go to brilliant.org/pursuitofwonder or click the link in the description below to sign up for a free trial. The first 200 people will also get 20% off their annual premium membership. And of course, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.